Hello everyone, Revan619 here. How the devil are you doing today? What I have in store for you all is my Astra Militarum Commander build. In testing, I found that I preferred Commissar as a soldier and Astra Militarum Commander as an officer, but when we did the polls, people wanted it the other way around. They wanted to see a soldier Astra Militarum Commander and an officer Commissar, which was quite interesting considering the ranks that they play in the Imperium. However, with that in mind, I have put together a soldier Arch-Militant that best uses the Las rifles, and it is exceptional. A couple of people had said that they thought that Las rifles wouldn't be viable, and I'd even had some people complain that it wouldn't be viable, but in testing, he kept up with Argenta. So yes, it kept up with bolt rifles, not so much heavy bolters, but nothing keeps up with heavy bolters in this game. And the end game is not too unimpressive. There's constant upgrades that you see, and yeah, you don't directly compete with gear with Argenta due to the fact that you're working with a gun of a 4 rate of fire or less, while she's working with a gun of higher than that. So whereas she'll want to use the compensator gloves, you can use the Temperis Elite Carapace backpack instead of the tactical backpack, and then you can use something like the gloves of rapid distillation, while she used the gunslinger's helm and she has her own custom helm. Now, it would benefit you to use the compensator gloves, but it is better served on her. So whilst you guys don't use the same things, you don't technically compete because she can use other items and you can use other items and you can still work very well together. The only issue is the fact that both being agility perception based, you're both covering awareness and demolitions. However, you could always go into dogmatic route, really stack fellowship and build up and go for lower Imperium. Though that's more of the J thing, and it works better with an officer anyway because they're high fellowship. To get the best out of your buffs, you are going to want to put some fellowship in here. Mine looks a little bit low because of combat adept, but that will go up once you're in combat. So your fellowship is fairly nice, actually. It's not the worst. You do get lots of free fellowship through various colony talents, so you don't really need to focus that. I think I only put 1 level up point into it. You will mostly want to focus on your agility and your perception, which will guarantee you having higher initiative. And because of the way initiative works in this game, there's big stat blocks where the game will force enemies to act before you, even if your team should be acting before them, and it's a way to sort of break up the flow of combat. I don't like it, but it's kind of what it is. Looking at the items here, I actually stick with light armor until right at the end game, which is when I switch into the perception armor, though you could stick to light armor throughout the entirety of the game, especially the Death World enforcers like Carapace, which is very, very good. If anything, I think I've got that on someone. Who did I equip that to? Normally I have that in Kabila. Apparently I've not given it to anyone this run, so that means I could have actually been using that myself. Yeah, you could also be using that. So if you wanted to go with the higher dodge, you can go for that. But aesthetically, I do prefer the extra perception, and you kind of don't need the extra dodge, but you do get a lot of these, and I do find that it is quite nice just to guarantee that nothing's going to be dodging you, especially going into the Act 4 bosses. Now, on the other items, I put on stuff like the Iron Cape because Agility and Fellowship both benefits here, and again, I didn't want to directly compete with gear that was on Argenta, although she was using Bead of Might, and I think I've ended up giving Ulfar the Fury Incarnate as well as the Bayonet Chain Knife and the Hellboot Horn Trophy. This meant I was able to equip myself with the Echo of Victory, which will benefit from the fact that a lot of your guns are higher for armor pen. For most of the game, you will be using stuff like the Hotshot Las rifle. If you had a Master Tactician, you could go Swarm Protector, but it's not one I'd recommend. But there are some other good upgrades, like the Missouri Pattern Las gun is a nice one. Trophy Las gun's also pretty decent. You've got the Aquatech Las gun, and then obviously the Implacable Tempest. And as soon as you get into the final section of the game, you will get the Necron Tech Las gun. Whilst I will show off the Necron Tech Las gun, I'm not really going to talk about it in the build because obviously you only have that for a good 6 minutes. When it comes to putting this chap together, I have opted for Fortress World because getting the Never Stop Shooting is quite useful if you're using extra turns to bring it down, because you will build up a lot through the additional turns to be able to be using Never Stop Shooting. So Never Stop Shooting, yes, when you get kills, will build up chance to have a 0 AP attack, and you have talents that will also further boost that. Again, just 1 free extra burst can be very useful for this build, and obviously going into Astra Militarum Commander, you do get access to Regimental Tactics, which is quite a decent ability. When used for 1 round, the Astra Militarum Commander and their allies do not suffer damage from allied attacks and deal 30% more damage to enemies that were attacked by them since the ability activation. If multi Astra Militarum Commanders are in combat, this fact does not stack. It does mean that your first hit won't benefit from regimental tactics, but I believe the second shot and onwards for a burst fire will. So it does very much benefit burst fire sort of things and multiple allies stacking up. It is a weird little requirement that it's not the first hit included, but it's not one that I found impacts you too much, and it's not an issue that I found going into it. With that in mind, building for burst weapons, especially las rifles with the trench combat, has been exceptionally good. When it comes to playing the Astra Militarum Commander at low levels, you're going to want to be putting on your regimental tactics on the turn that you're going to push the enemies the hardest. It might not always be the first turn, but as you can see here, in this Rebel Agitator fight, I need to kill this Rebel Agitator before it can act, and due to my high agility and perception, I do act first, and I'm able to guarantee the key target that we need for our team to take out to win this encounter, and I do that without any effort. This also means that now I can freely use other allied abilities to just burst fire onto enemies, and I don't have to worry about positioning as much. So Cassia on this run was probably the run that I use Little Astaire the most, because allies will auto dodge it, so that meant that I could set up very easily to have a lot of stun on enemies and really control the flow of combat. Naturally, you're going to build up very good dodge because of the way that some of these talents works, although your melee dodge is still going to be something that you don't want to keep at the front lines for, but you can freely use characters like Ablard to try and keep enemies off you, especially with his taunts, and you will benefit from having Argenta in the party because of just how strong Priest is now. As you can see, Operative is still my least favourite archetype, as all Idra did was knock down allies and then miss the enemy. However, Argenta, what I'm doing here is I'm actually trying to move her up to the Astra Militarum Commander, because when he takes his extra turn before it comes back to Argenta, he will benefit from Furious Recital. So the plan was to get her as close to him as possible, and then obviously share those buffs. And I can just freely burst fire at this enemy, even though it's next to my ally, because he'll automatically dodge. So that's something to keep in mind when you're playing this, that you're not really going to struggle with your positioning, and you're going to have less to think about and worry about, because of the allies during that big push are going to be safe from each other, which means that you can have Ablard very easily push up. He'll dodge attacks that were aimed at him, and it will normally hit enemies that would have been on the other side of him. So it's a very effective playstyle, and it just allows you to play a soldier much more aggressively, but like I said, you're still not going to want to leave them into combat melee range because they are quite squishy. However, there's lots of light armor that you get through Cabela that's actually toughness focused, so this will actually benefit you a lot in the early game to use that toughness focused light armor, and then you can just carry on setting up your turns and moving your team up to really push into the enemy. So, starting with Soldier, obviously we come with Run and Gun, which can increase our attack economy. Medicae is one I get first, just so I have access to med packs. You don't have to take this one, but if you want to be using Medicae items, that's very useful. Going through Soldier, you do pick up Revel and Slaughter, which it will give you ballistic skill bonuses, critical damage bonuses, and critical hit chance based on your agility once you've killed 3 or more enemies, and with the upgrade it will be 2. Firearm Mastery is a fantastic attack, and as we build up rate of fire, this can give us a lot of single shot attacks, and with our extra distance and dodge reduction, it is very nice to have that for the laser rifle build. Muzzle velocity is also going to be the key one here, because at first hit is going to be building up from a high rate of fire, so it is very good to go in for that. It's also going to be very useful for the Chaos one on higher difficulties. Building up ballistic skill first, yep, we want to build up rapid reload first because we're going to be entering our clips fairly quickly. More ballistic skill going into rapid fire as the first ability, and this one obviously giving us extra rate of fire, but reducing the damage, also very good. Building up agility, more agility is more initiative and more dodge, so fantastic. Getting Trench Warfare first. Whilst the Astra Militarum Commander is in partial cover, the las weapons rate of fire is increased by 20% and 40% whilst in full cover. You don't need to be full cover protected from whatever you're shooting at, you just need to be next to full cover. So you could have a partial cover in front of you and full cover to your side, or just be standing with full cover to your back and shooting, and you still get the full benefit. So you'll actually see a lot more use out of this than you might have otherwise thought. And Faltering Fire means rapid fire no longer reduces damage, so it is a fantastic upgrade. Build into awareness, because that's what I wanted for this one, though you could change it to one of your other agility or perception based skills. I go for the Firearm Mastery upgrade 2 to get the extra 30% rate of fire, because that is very noticeable. Fired Up's going to be fantastic for 1% extra crit damage per rate of fire. Because we take so many shots and so often, yeah, you get a lot of benefit from that. Building up even more agility, which is another fantastic one. I didn't build for Alacrity because I felt like it wasn't as important with some of these other talents, but it is something that you could actually build up for as well. The second ability, I take Concentrated Fire, because we are going to be using secondary shotguns as we go into Arch-Militant to build versatility, more awareness, more perception, and then I get Never Stop Believing. So your willpower becomes stacked to Never Stop believing when all stacks never stop shooting should be lost. So this is a good way to keep it up fairly high and to have constant turns of reusing it. Swift Slaughter is another one, reduces the kills from 3 to 2 to activate Reverend Slaughter, so it's one that I found quite useful. You could probably take Alacrity here if you really wanted that, but I prefer Swift Slaughter. Field Fire is fantastic. Whilst the Astra Militarum Commander is under the Regimental Tactics effect, all their allies gain 5% rate of fire for every attack they have made since the start of this effect. This builds up and it is huge. Makes your team incredibly powerful for that first turn. It's what allows this to kind of compete with Priest for that 1-turn buff. Hail Steel is another good one. Each round the Fortress World character gains a stack 1% bonus to dodge against ranged attacks for each shot they have made during this round. They also, the burst range attack gains plus 10 stacks never stop shooting. So that's pretty nice. I build into Demolitions. We're going to want this for the end game when we go into Demolition Engineer. And lastly, I get Firearm Upgrade 3, so our attacks 20% harder to dodge and have 10% more armor pen. That you'll notice that is quite good. There are other options you could take, but because we're going into Mars Tactician, we don't need till the end of the soldier's turn. They get 4 MP and attacks do not spend MP. Honestly, I'd like this to see it to be buffed to be like the warrior one, where it's for the whole combat, but it is what it is. As we move into the mid game, you'll be finding that your commander becomes quite a linchpin for actually setting up damage and getting the party going. So they're very good to take that first, bring it down from your Cassia or Grand Strategist, as it were. You're about to see the misplay of the century here. I thought that would refund it, but then I realised I hadn't picked up the ability to refund it. That's the problem when going back to play early game accounts again. Anyway, as you can see, we are using the Hotshot Lads gun. We are getting the benefit of having the full cover here, and we're not going to have to worry about blasting Abelard at all. So we can just freely go in and do some really good damage to just clear up enemies here. And then we can even follow up with stuff like our shotgun attacks, and that's why we like having the 1 AP shotguns in that secondary slot, because you tend to have that little bit of extra AP to be able to get away with that, and you do some really respectable damage, and you have your buffs up for the party. If you're lucky as well, if you've set up Cassie right, you can sometimes also get the Finest Hour coming in straight away, and you can sometimes pick up enemies. If I had actually moved Cassia up, I could have used the Stim for Lidless Stare with the Sororitas boots to guarantee a Finest Hour here, but that's a way that you can sort of power game it more. You're going to use the Sororitas boots with Cassia a lot more when you have this setup, because there's a lot more you can get away with. The rest of your team is easily going to be able to push up and do what they need to do, because their damage is going to be enhanced thanks to your Astra Militarum Commander effect. So even though it's not going to be as much as what he would buff as if he was an officer, it's going to be very noticeable for your team making very aggressive pushes. Got a weird little death from above glitch there where I sort of lost the damage, but then I got a massive damage explosion afterwards. So the game, always perfect, no bugs, 10 out of 10 game. Never ever see issues with it.
The shadows will speak.
Pascal getting bullied there. Often you will find yourself going before Argenta because of the way group combat works. If you combat initiative worked correctly, because she has higher agility, she should be acting before you, but roll chances can impact that. Obviously, if Argenta was going first, you'd really benefit from seeing her usages of Litany of Hatred, but you don't need it. It's just it would be nice to have it on your extra damage, but your damage is already really good as it is. As you can see here, I'm actually using a stim because I have many of them to do, and I felt like this was a good chance to use it to get out some extra damage because I had that run and gun available. Could have moved closer to going for this, but I decided to take a much longer range shot, but it didn't work out too negatively. And now, because I have both buffs up, Argenta's going to be able to benefit from her own Litany of Hatred, as well as giving the buff to my Astra Militarum Commander of her Litany of Hatred backwards when it comes to his turn, and for her turn to have his buff. So Argenta really does do very well with having both in the party. Even the non-crit there, you saw on that shotgun shot, hitting there for 67, pretty nice. And now when you see this cross-map burst fire that she's going to do on a heavy bolter, yeah, having both buffs coming in, just absolutely fantastic. And then you can take some really good single shots to follow up, and your combat encounters will mostly go like this, where just together you and Argenta will clear from Act 2 in a single turn, and then the end game will be even easier. I find that on paper Bounty Hunter should be stronger, but because of the lack of elite enemies, Arch-Militant just outperforms it. Until Alcat actually populate combats with higher tier enemies, Arch-Militant's always going to outperform Bounty Hunter. Master Tactician was fun. You do want higher resolve, and you also want to go into some of the officer stuff, but a soldier master tactician is perfectly viable, and I do have that alternative on the spreadsheet, but this is going to focus on the Arch-Militant build because it is my preferred playstyle, so we're going to be going through that. So the way versatility works, if you change attack types from single to area, you will gain versatility. It also counts from melee to range, but we're not focused on melee to range, we're focused on swapping between burst and area. Wildfire will increase our attack economy, which is pretty vital to here, and we can reduce that as we build up stacks of versatility. Always ready, going to be the vital one to get those extra 2 stacks of versatility to begin with. Says superiority is an okay upgrade, but because we're going to be ending most combats in one round, we'll probably only see firearm mastery. We start getting up to 5 AP at rank 5 here, which is going to be a big boost to us because we do have lots of active abilities. More ballistic skill, we get flash fire, which is upgrade to wildfire, so it starts reducing AP quicker. More ballistic skill, reckless rush is going to be a huge one. This is going to be very vital for our movement, and it's why Arch-Militant is probably one of the best tier 2s in the game, and just as a default, the strongest and easiest to play. Familiar kickback is another way to start building more stacks for never stop shooting, so it is one that we can get, but it's not a priority. You could always drop this for something else if you were looking to get it. More demolitions, we go into all out, so whilst the Arch-Militant under the effect of Reckless Rush, they do not cost MP, and you do need stacks that when you activate Reckless Rush to do it, which is why we take Always Ready. More agility, Unflinching Heroism is a pretty good one. Whenever the Astra Militarum Commander or the ally performs a heroic act, the commander's characteristics are increased by +7 to the end of turn. This does seem to stack. Getting some adaptability, so we start building up critical hit chance. More demolitions, more agility, we get Steady Superiority upgrade 4, so we can use both Firearm Mastery and Steady Superiority upgrade, which gives us an extra attack, which is quite nice. Awareness, critical versatility, so we start getting some more crit damage. More perception, more suppression fire. This one will lower enemies' dodge, so it's very good to get this before Act 3. Devastating attack's another huge one here. Because we're doing energy damage, it means that we will inflict blinded on enemies, so that is a very nice one. If you were going for piercing and rending damage, then obviously you can do bleeding and slowed, and impact damage would knock things prone. Breaking attack will lower enemy toughness and armor, so that's a very useful one to have on the first big burst. More perception, we want to build this up as much as we can before doing Act 3. Gain some awareness. Dismantle will help set up some of our stuff. Any of our area attacks will reduce the deflection of our enemies and their armor, though it does not stack for itself. More perception, we do get fellowship because we do have an extra point laying around here, and we also pick up grenadier, so we can get out those iron eye grenades to armor strip. And lastly, we get steady superiority upgrade 2, which gives us 2% bonus critical hit chance. I never take the stance abilities because they're just not very good. Cautious approach is one that it can increase dodge and parry for stacks, so you can build that up so you can be more defensive, and it can also remove some effects, but you don't really get CC'd in this game, so it's not really one to use. Although in the early games there is lots of enemies that are throwing out stun grenades on, especially on Janus, but you can't really react to that, and it's just not as vital as getting devastating attack, reckless rush, and wildfire first. Those are your 3 priorities. As confident approach, yeah, this is never worth it. All it does is lower your crit damage, so even though you always crit, you just drastically reduce your overall damage. I've tested this a lot of times, and yes, you always do less damage because of how much it reduces your crit, because it's not just doing your actual crit score, it's doing the entire crit damage section. So you will notice that you'll always do a good 20 less per attack, so it's not one I suggest. And because we build ballistic skill anyway, and we have allied buffs, and the fact that we build versatility means that we always crit anyway, so this is not an upgrade and not one that I'd recommend. After Act 3, most combats are over very quickly, so rather than trying to explain a full combat, because you're just doing what you did in Act 2 but stronger, harder, faster, I just want to show off a little bit of the Necron Tech Hotshot Lasgun, which you don't see until right at the end of the game, and there are ways that you can stack this up with other items like Breacher's Boots and Slicing Symbol to, like I said, generate a lot of NP, though I'm not really going to do it much here because the enemies aren't stacked close enough to make it useful. But the kicks can do some fairly nice damage, and they can can fail the checks to actually get knocked down. And as you can see here, they're going to be too far away for me to generate another kick because I need the enemies within 2 cells and I need to shoot 2 of them. So they have to be like lined up 1 in a row. But I can use the shotgun devastating attack to set up some stacks on all of these enemies here to then move around and just show off a really nice and strong burst fire. So again, I put my back to full cover because you don't actually need to be in full cover, and I'm not using the dogmatic heroic abilities to ignore enemy armor just because I want to show some of the damage. And as you can see, I'm stacking rate of fire a lot here as well as just increasing it naturally anyway. So the 16 rate of fire is going to be burst there, 26 with the rapid fire coming in, and all my attacks are going to also give me increased rate of fire. Ugh, just beautiful. Look at that. Just woof. You will be seeing yourself doing a lot of stuff like that. Now my rate of fire is up to 19, and we're still going. As our buffs keep going up, as we keep stacking up our stuff, we keep going, and any other turns that we take later would also then benefit from all of that. And because we're building up such good weapon score because of our versatility, we can also get out the little stab feature. So if I take a shot or even just go for the attached bayonets, we do our gun damage and we do a nice little axe with the gun, and 177 damage isn't too bad. About 300 we're seeing on the shotgun itself, and then if we go in with these burst fires, again, didn't proc the breacher because we need 2 of those there, but we do get some really good stuff out of Echo Victory if the enemies are within 5 cells. So we've got a 20 burst fire here. Yeah, stuff just don't survive, and our rate of fire is so high it kind of glitches out quite a lot as well. The biggest issue you're always going to find is trying to keep up your MP. At the moment you can still abuse the inertia boots because it is bugged, so you will be able to use the inertia boots bug to really do that. But yeah, with this build you're not gonna see many issues about clearing all of these encounters, especially late game. Stuff like the Act 4 boss with Urlon and Daybreak, absolute piece of cake. And if anything, because of those enemies having really high stats, you're going to do even more. So yeah, this is just a fantastic build and playstyle. There's always good upgrades for the las weapons. As we move into Exemplar for the end game, I like to take Eager for Battle first because the more AP, the more likely you are to one-turn the combat. Rack and Rune's a good one here because every time we deal damage to 3 enemies, we again on our next attack get some more damage. We get Awareness, Exploit Weakness, so we can start using, when we've started lowering enemies' stats, that we can actually start getting extra damage. This has all been built into the build, so you will just naturally build this up yourself. So as you have any effects that have the enemy's armor or deflection reduced, you will increase your damage. More ballistic skill, fixed bayonets. This is a pretty good one for late game for Astra Militarum Commander. It counts as a melee attack, but because of versatility we do get weapon score increases, and it's just a free stab to help build some versatility, much like Kick is. You take Entrench, so if you ever run out of MP or you've got nothing in your AP to shoot, you just do that so you can recover that on your next run and gun. You can do that from Bring It Down or Finest Hour and also main turn. So we've got some more awareness coming here. Degraded defense, biggest damage buff in the game, is absolutely fantastic. Distract is a good one to get. Any of our burst attacks and the melee area attacks reduce the dodge of all enemies hit by 8%. We get this by level 40, so we have it for the Ramirez boss fight. We get more ballistic skill. Camaraderie is another one that can be quite useful because we automatically dodge our allies' attacks. We can just stack up, and it does mean that because of regimental tactics, we can use a lot more little stairs without having to worry. So we can be quite close to our allies to get all these bonuses, and it is for each ally we'll be seeing this buff. Get some Kick in here. It's very good for an AP generation, but there's nothing really else to take here. Some agility. Martial art will give us a chance that they have to take toughness to check or they can fall prone, but it's a very small chance. If you wanted to move out martial art for a different Arch-Militant talent, you very easily could. Pick up Combat Addict because it will give us +7 to ballistic skill, perception and willpower, and whilst we're out of combat it just lowers intelligence, fellowship and perception. More demolition we pick up, as well as deadly aim, so if our dodge reduction is higher, because we're using laser weapons it is going to be pretty good, we do extra damage. We then eventually get, after the AP increase, some Demolition Engineers, so we use Demolitions for our additional bonus to area attacks instead of intelligence, so that's quite a nice upgrade, as well as getting Point Blank, so our area attacks to enemies within 3 cells also gain 29% arm penetration and 4 deflection to be ignored, so that's actually a really strong upgrade. If you go for a shotgun build, this is definitely what you want for the Chaos Bomb. More Demolitions, then we get Contempt for the Weak, so to enemies that are either stunned, prone or blinded, and blinded we will get from our burst attacks, that's why it's so good for devastating attack. More agility, more perception, more Medicaid. Extermination means each attack we make will give us +1 base damage, which is pretty nice. Enough bullets for everyone. The second attack in the round will do extra damage, but it is only the second attack in the round, so you don't get for many more than once. Preferred targets, any dodge reduction that has been applied will also increase our critical hit chance as well as critical damage. Fortress is one that you can use because it's just as long as you're touching cover, you get 10% damage, which is pretty nice, and you also get some DR when you're protected from cover against people. Yeah, build up Medicaid because there's nothing else to take, but spare magazine is going to be a useful one just towards the end, just so you're not spending AP that often because you get 2 free reloads. Controlled shot's not really one you use, but I prefer this over dash, though you could swap it out if you really wanted to. Gone for a perception upgrade. Now, I was experimenting with tipping point here, so the character's dodge reduction and armor penetration are increased by 10% of their critical hit chance. However, you could easily swap this out for like pinpoint accuracy, vital points, or even cataclysm. This one's really open to your choice. I was just experimenting here, so that last exemplar talent is going to be up to you to choose. Get accustomed to glory, and finally we finished the build at rank 20. On the spreadsheet, you will find this build under Company Commander. This is my preferred way to play Astra Militarum Commander, but I do have other options available to you if you did want to try them out, as well as some gear suggestions. And again, this isn't a one-for-one guide, and these are not ordered by anything. These are just suggestions for things to consider for your own playstyles. These are designed to be build skeletons that you customize. Another one here we've got is Trench Strategist, which is a officer brand strategist, so it's very good. This one focuses on las rifles. We've then got in the Gunsling Commander. So the actual trench warfare does apply to las pistols, so you can do a dual las pistol build if you wanted to, and then have a secondary rifle. Another one, I've got Dishonorable Discharge, which is just Astra Militarum Commander trying out using the Xenos weapons. This was because I thought that deadly accuracy might apply base damage, which would make the rune carved shuriken cannon really OP, but it's not. It's just flat crit damage, so just extra. Yeah, per shot you get, say you have 10 bonus to your perception, then each crit will have plus 10 damage. I thought it was going to be base, so it's not as good as I thought it was going to be. Another one we got is Lord Commander Militant. This is a heavy gunner version that uses heavy stubbers. Incredibly powerful. It doesn't unfortunately get use of trench warfare because yeah, we don't have any heavy lads cannons, but maybe in one update we will see some. We've also got the Guard Astra Militarum Commander. This one is obviously a soldier master tactician that I spoke about earlier, so if you did want to try that out, this version is also there. And lastly, the Grand Astra Militarum Strategist. This one was one that I was testing out with Be Smart, and because I was using Be Smart, I swapped over to arc rifles. Very fun, but arc rifles are slightly bugged where some of their shots miss when they shouldn't, and hopefully that's something the devs will be fixing soon. But that's all I've got for you today. I hope you've enjoyed this build. If you have, do share it around, do give a like and leave a comment. Obviously all that algorithm stuff helps me, and I'll be busily working away and getting everything updated on the spreadsheet. In the background, for those of you that are interested, we do have all the talents up to date. We do have all the abilities up to date. We now have all the vendors up to date as of patch 1.5. We've mostly got all the helmets in here now. There might be a few little things missing, but you will see most of it in here. All the armor is close to being updated. There are a few ones missing, so if you do spot any missing, do let me know on the spreadsheet and I can get them added in. You can do that on the Discord, actually. I've got pretty much most of the neck slots in here. I've got most of the trinket slots in here as well, or accessory slots, whichever you like to call them. Most of the gloves you should now be seeing. Some of them I still need to do a few little updates and check to see if they're all available, but if you spot any that I've missed, do let me know. As for cloaks, most of these are all going to be up to date, and they are updated DLC 1 and 2, and the same with the boots. I've been busily working away, and I've been getting the weapons updated as well for the DLC stuff. And again, the weapons, the armor are the most likely ones to have ones missing, so if you do spot any, do let me know and we will try to get them added. We've also got all the colony projects updated, so all the rewards that you get in for there. I did realize I'd actually accidentally missed Janus, so I've manually put it all in, but I do need to fix the format on that. We've got the coronation rewards in there now. Some of the space and system resources, this does need to be checked for 1.5. I have not got around to that, but I have updated a space route for 1.5 for those of you that are looking to do that. So lots of spreadsheet updates. So yeah, all I can say is, well, we've still got Dark Heresy to look forward to. We should start seeing marketing for that soon. And I should have some exclusive information coming for that in the next few weeks myself, as well as some collabs that I'll be doing with some other YouTubers around the subject. But I'll see you next time. Thank you as always.